Now my effectors are cardiac muscle, smooth muscle, groin. So we've got this great big system, and there's not a single part of the body that it's not touching. This system is touching everything. We're going to find that in the makeup, neurons, nerve cells, are going to be that basic unit. Do you recognize excitability? Where did we see that? With the muscles. How about conductivity? We saw that with the muscles. Now, secretion. We didn't see secretion with the muscles, but we talked about it because the secretion that we talked about with the muscles was how the nerve met the muscle cell at the neuromuscular junction and secreted the neurotransmitter. Does everybody remember that? So now, I'm going to find all right, so now think back to our nerve cell body, our dendrite, my axon, then my little terminal end that meet something. They will either meet another neuron, a muscle, or a gland. Does that make sense? So therefore, at the point where they meet something else, we will have an area of a synapse. You guys remember that? And into the synapse is where that neurotransmitter, the protein, which would travel down the axon into these little ends, will get released. And that's our neurotransmitter. Everybody remember that? Okay. So, they're excitable because they're going to respond to a stimulus. They're conductive because they're going to produce electricity. And they secrete their product, which means in this case, a neurotransmitter. We are going to classify our neurons. Some will be classified based on their function, some on their structure. For the most part, when we look at or think about a nerve, this is the one we think about. Is that correct? This one is what we call multipolar. The structural classification, multipolar, that is most of the neurons in my central nervous system, the brain or the spinal cord, and what makes up a motor neuron. Wait a minute. Motor neurons? What does that do? Does that receive the stimulus or carry out the effect? Carries out my effect. So, for the most part, that's multipolar. Now, bipolar. Not like you're thinking of, with the psychiatric condition, okay? Bipolar tells us two of something on the structure. Note, very specialized. They are found in the retina of the eye and in the nose, the sense of smell. That's it. Is that sensory information or motor effect? My sensory information. I can have what's termed unipolar, where the cell body looks like it branches off. Now, this right here is what you're going to find in some of our other special senses, and then in the neurons of the brain that allow for monitoring homeostasis of the body. It is so cool. So what we're going to say for function. I have my sensory neurons. They are also going to be termed afferent because they carry information into the central nervous system. Once I'm in the central nervous system, which is the brain and the spinal cord, that information may or may not meet with an interneuron or an association neuron. But whatever the decision is by the nervous system, it sends the effect by way of a motor neuron. So my functions carry information in, integrate it, or carry information that carry the effect out. My structure can be multi, bi, or uni. Is everybody with me so far? When we look at the makeup of a neuron, the structure of it is very special. The body tends to be large because when we are talking about these neurons, we are talking about cells that are not going to duplicate. All right? Therefore, they are stuck in a part of the cycle of the life cycle of the cell. Okay? You guys remember G1, G0, G2, and all that sort of thing. They're stuck in what's called G0. They are a fully formed cell, but all they do is carry out the cell activities. Their job making their neurotransmitter and passing or not passing the action potential. So, the structure. Love the structure. In what's termed my nerve cell body, the neuron body. I have my nucleus, which is huge. Okay? It's huge. Because the only thing it does is make its product, the neurotransmitter, and it's doing that 24/7, 365, 366 if it's a leap year. Because how many of y'all like your nervous system working? I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I mean, you know, something goes wrong in it, things begin to break off and hurt and everything else. Alright? So I kind of like the fact that it's just sitting there making its product. Now, nucleolus is present. Something else that's present are missile bodies that have a substance in them which is similar to rough endoplasmic reticulum, helping with production of protein, because it's going to be a lot of work for these cells. Our dendrites. Dendrites look like a branch off of a tree. Here, we've got them here, there. All right, showing the dendrites. The spine is the long portion meeting the little ends that are present. An axon is this long portion extending from the nerve cell body. The axon is very complicated. There is an area where the axon meets the cell body that is termed the axon hillock. The first segment of the axon and the hillock are called the trigger zone. Well, that's an interesting area. Guess what type of channel in the plasma membrane is found at this portion of the cell? Now, not the ligand, because the ligand would have to be in the area of the dendrite where it's receiving something. What other one do we have? You know it, Austin. I know you know it. Our voltage data. We're going to have at this area a ton of voltage gated channels. Because guess what? Or like my granddaughter, guess what? Guess what? The dendrites, those are receiving something. Okay? For that information to make, for that receipt to make this axon react, that receipt of that information, which is coming by way of a ligand gated, if the ligand gate opens, what rushes in? That? Sodium. If sodium rushes in, what does it affect, Austin? My voltage gated. But now, I've got my dendrite in one area, voltage gates in another. That potential, that action potential that starts up here, it has to travel all the way across the body of that neuron. Why would that be important? To see if we're going to continue to pass the action potential or if we're going to stop it. The nervous system is either going to continue the transmission of something or it's going to stop it. Both are important. So, let's say that transmission continued across the body, made it to the axon hillock. It was still strong enough to change my voltage. So if it changed my voltage, guess what? Zach, what's going to rush in at those voltage gates? Sodium.